Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine radar technology showing this colossal underground city.
Right under the Giza Pyramids.
Yeah, stretching 2 kilometers apparently and reaching depths, get this, twice as deep as the Eiffel Tower.
Wow. That is sensational, isn't it?
It's the claim we're diving into. The researchers, Corrado Malanga from Pisa and Filippo Biondi from Strathclyde, they used SAR.
Synthetic aperture radar.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, right off the bat, that's just audacious.
It really is.
An underground city of that scale under maybe the most studied place on Earth, it really makes you stop and think.
Absolutely. And the sources we've got for this deep dive are, well, they're quite a mix.
Okay.
We've got news articles, buzzing about this shocking secret. Then there's a YouTube doc called Aliens in Egypt.
Ah, okay. So alternative theories territory.
Definitely. Lots of that. But then another YouTube doc, Decoding the Great Pyramid, which is much more focused on the human side of building them.
Grounding it in the archaeology. Good.
And weirdly, a blog post from a Bible scholar. Not really related to the city claim or how they built them, but it was in the initial pile of stuff we looked at.
Interesting mix. So this raises a big question for you, the listener, right? How do you weigh this, extraordinary claim against what we already know about ancient Egypt?
Exactly. And with these different kinds of sources, we need to be careful. Sift through the evidence. Look at the different angles.
Yeah, figure out what's what.
So our mission today, through the hype, try to separate potential facts from speculation, and just get a clearer picture of all the different views on Giza.
Give you those surprising facts without the mental hard labor.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start with the big one. The underground city claim. Malanga and Biondi said they found a whole network.
Under all 3 pyramids, supposedly. And the reports get pretty specific. They mention 5 identical multi-level structures near Khafre's pyramid.
Identical and connected.
Connected by, quote, geometric passageways. That's the claim.
Okay, wow. And it gets even wilder. They also reported finding, 8 vertical wells?
Cylindrical wells, yeah.
Right.
With spiral pathways going down. Just an insane depth. 648 meters.
648 meters. That's
It
unbelievable.
really is. And these spirals supposedly merge into 2 massive cube-shaped chambers.
Cubes. How massive?
80 meters wide. Each one. Giant, perfect cubes.
80 meters.
Yeah.
That's just mind-boggling volume. How could you even build that? And why haven't we seen other signs?
Exactly. That's the immediate question, isn't it? It really captures the imagination, though.
Oh, definitely. The immediate buzz was, okay, maybe the pyramids weren't just tombs.
Right. Maybe they had some kind of, I don't know, mechanical function, energy production, that sort of thing started popping up.
And people even started linking it to the mythical halls of Amenti.
Ah, the halls of Amenti. Yeah, that's deep in Egyptian mythology. The underworld, hidden knowledge.
So linking modern science to ancient myth. Always compelling.
It definitely adds to the mystique, doesn't it? Explains why the story got so much traction.
And it wasn't just, fringe blogs. Brian Rummel, a technologist, apparently said the images hinted at a hidden world that could rewrite history.
That's a big statement. Rewrite history. It really taps into that desire for uncovering lost secrets.
But, and it's a big but, we need to hit the brakes here and look at the skepticism, right?
Absolutely. Critical thinking time. Because the pushback was pretty immediate and pretty strong.
Flora Anthony, an Egyptologist and historian, she raised flags right away.
She did. She actually went back to the original paper, the one by Malanga and Biondi, and she found it didn't really match the sensational claims and images flying around the media. Huge difference, apparently.
So the media story kind of ran away from the actual research.
It seems like it might have. Which happens. Plus, she pointed out the paper wasn't peer-reviewed.
Ah, the crucial step.
Exactly. Peer review is how science validates itself. Experts check the work. Without it, well, you have to be cautious. And the journal it was in wasn't exactly a top-tier publication in the field either.
Right, so red flags there.
Definitely. We also saw this report on the claimed underground city.
What did that say?
It basically laid out the debate, the believers versus the skeptics, and it hammered home that lack of peer review.
Okay.
And it also mentioned, our current geological understanding of the Giza Plateau. Does it even make sense?
Would you build something like that there?
Well, a structure that huge and deep, it would leave geological traces. And what we know about the geology there just doesn't seem to fit with this massive, deep, complex network they described.
Okay, that's a major point. Now, the tech, they use SAR tomography. Can you break that down? How does it work and what are its limits here?
Sure. Think of SAR like radar from a plane or satellite. It sends down pulses, they bounce back, and the system pieces together an image.
Okay.
SAR tomography is like taking lots of those SAR images from different angles and stacking them up to try and get a 3D view, like slices, of what's underground.
So it can see below the surface.
To an extent, yes. It's really good for mapping large areas, spotting changes, like ground subsidence, things like that. Very precise for surface changes.
But seeing down 648 meters
Yeah.
and identifying specific shapes.
And that's the crux of the issue. SAR can penetrate the ground, but getting accurate depth measurements, especially that deep, and in dense rock, like at Giza, it gets really, really uncertain. They claimed a 1-meter resolution, which sounds great, but that's usually horizontal resolution. Vertical accuracy at that kind of depth with SAR, experts are, let's say, highly doubtful.
So the radar might show something down there, some kind of anomaly or change in the rock.
Exactly. A void, maybe, or a different type of stratum.
But calling it 5 identical structures or 2 80-meter cubes is a big jump.
A very big jump. You'd need a lot more corroborating evidence, probably from different methods entirely, to confirm shapes like that so deep down.
Okay, that makes this skepticism much clearer. The tech has limits, especially for this kind of claim. So let's pivot then. Let's talk about what we do know, the established view of how the pyramids were built. That Decoding the Great Pyramid doc covered this well, didn't it?
It really did. And it paints a picture of, frankly, incredible human organization and skill. Forget the old image of just slaves being whipped.
Yeah. What's the evidence say?
It suggests the workers might have even seen themselves as, like, the elite or the chosen group, people dedicated to this massive project for the pharaoh.
The elite. That's fascinating. Where does that idea come from?
From the excavations of the workers' villages nearby, they've found these planned towns, evidence of bakeries, breweries, fish processing, proper infrastructure.
So not just temporary camps.
Not at all, and tons of pottery, clay seals with names and titles, all dating back to Khufu's time. It points to a large, settled, organized workforce.
And what about their conditions? You mentioned not just slaves.
While analysis of bones and food remains suggests they ate pretty well. Lots of protein, maybe 200, 300 grams of meat a day.
Wow, that's not slave rations.
Yes. No. You'd need that kind of food to do the incredibly hard physical labor involved. Specialized tool makers, quarry workers, transport crews, skilled labor.
And the engineering itself. The documentary highlighted the precision, right?
Unbelievable precision. The base of the Great Pyramid is almost perfectly level, carved into sloping bedrock. That alone is amazing.
And the alignment.
To true north. Accurate to within a tiny fraction of a degree. How? Probably using shadows, maybe observing the sun at the equinox. Really clever astronomical observation. No compass needed.
Just brains and careful measurement.
And things like the gabled roofs inside, designed specifically to relieve the immense pressure of the stone above the chambers. That's sophisticated engineering.
And the logistics, moving all that stone. Millions of tons.
Yeah, limestone from nearby quarries, but also that high-quality white limestone from Tura across the Nile.
And the granite.
All the way from Aswan, hundreds of miles south. They likely used the Nile floods, maybe built temporary canals and basins, like this Roshi Khufu place archaeologists have found evidence for.
So using the river itself to help move the stone closer.
Exactly. And specialized boats, obviously. It was a massive, incredibly well-planned operation.
It really emphasizes that, okay, the tools were simple. Maybe wood rollers, ropes, stone hammers, some copper chisels.
Pretty basic stuff by our standards.
But combine that with human ingenuity, planning, organization, and just sheer manpower.
And you get the pyramids. It was an astonishing human achievement, no doubt about it. It doesn't require lost technology or alien help to explain it, even if it boggles our modern minds sometimes.
Okay. But of course, the mysteries haven't completely gone away. People are still fascinated. Which brings us back to things like that Aliens in Egypt doc and this whole field of pyramidology.
Yeah, and you can see why. There are still questions. How exactly did they achieve that precision? Why this specific geographical orientation? What about weird artifacts like that schist disc or the Sakura bird?
Things that don't seem to quite fit the standard picture.
Right. And that opens the door for alternative ideas, like the ancient astronaut hypothesis.
The idea that ETs built them, or at least helped out.
Or gave them the tech. It often stems from this feeling that ancient people just couldn't have done it alone. Proponents point to the precision, the math involved, maybe artifacts they see as out of place.
Like the Baghdad battery or those little gold things from South America that look a bit like planes.
Exactly. Stuff that seems too advanced for its time, according to that viewpoint.
And pyramidology itself seems broader than just aliens, right?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of a catch-all for non-mainstream ideas about the pyramids. You get prophetic interpretations.
Like finding Bible prophecies encoded in the dimensions.
That was a big one, especially with the British Israelites back in the day, or links to lost civilizations like Atlantis or Lemuria.
And proponents today, like Christopher Dunn, talking about machining marks, or Graham Hancock focusing on lost civilizations.
Right. It covers a lot of ground, often presented with scientific-sounding language, but generally considered pseudoscience by mainstream archaeology and Egyptology.
And that's not new criticism, is it? Someone was calling it out way back.
Yeah, Gustave Jacquier, a Swiss Egyptologist back in 1937, he criticized it as being inaccurate, biased, dressing up speculation as science. So the skepticism from experts has a long history.
Okay. So while the alternative ideas are definitely out there and, let's face it, pretty intriguing,
AR.
the weight of actual archaeological evidence leans heavily towards human construction.
And speaking of construction, building underground wasn't exactly new for the Egyptians, was it?
Not at all. That's a really important counterpoint to the idea that this claimed underground city is somehow beyond their capabilities. Think about the Valley of the Kings.
Right. Those tomb complexes are incredibly elaborate, deep underground shafts and chambers.
Right, exactly. Or the catacombs of Alexandria. Or the Serapeum at Saqqara with those enormous granite sarcophagi for the Apis bulls underground.
Yeah, moving the sarcophagi alone was a feat.
Or even the crypts hidden within the walls of temples like at Dendera. The Egyptians were skilled tunnelers and underground architects. So the argument that primitive humans couldn't build complex underground structures, it just doesn't hold water when you look at the evidence.
Not really. Dr. Mohammed Al-Said from Cairo University made this point. They had thousands of years to develop their skills. They had math, they had labor, they had project management. Saying they couldn't do it actually kind of diminishes their real achievements.
Good point. What about specific theories like an Atlantean technology vault under Giza?
Well, the biggest problem there is Atlantis. There's zero credible archaeological evidence it was a real place. Plato used it as an allegory, a philosophical story.
So building a theory about an Atlantean vault on top of that is shaky ground.
Extremely shaky. Same goes for older ideas, like the pyramid being an ancient power plant, or the Hall of Records supposedly hidden under the Sphinx.
Those pop up again with this underground city claim, I guess.
Yeah, they get revitalized. But again, they lack solid archaeological backing. Interesting ideas, maybe, but not supported by evidence found on site.
So it seems the most plausible explanation for pyramids and any associated underground bits we know exist is still ancient Egyptian skill and organization.
That's where the evidence points most strongly.
Now, how does modern tech fit into exploring these sites today? We've talked about SAR's limits, but what else is being used?
Well, technology is definitely opening new doors, especially for non-invasive exploration. Drones are becoming huge.
Little drones flying inside.
Yep. Small, agile drones like the Scout DI or Elios models mentioned in one source. They can carry high-res cameras, thermal cameras, even LiDAR sensors.
LiDAR, that's the laser mapping thing.
Exactly. Light detection and ranging. It uses lasers to create super detailed 3D maps of spaces. These drones can fly into tight, potentially dangerous spots. Think Roman catacombs, inside old church structures, maybe even those narrow shafts in the pyramids eventually.
Without damaging anything or putting people at risk.
Precisely. And they gather amazing data-detailed images, plus spatial data that's accurate down to centimeters. You can build virtual models.
So how does that compare to SAR for looking underground?
It's different. Drones with LiDAR are for mapping existing spaces, even hidden ones, with high precision. SAR, as we discussed, is more for large-scale subsurface detection, trying to see through material, but with those limitations on depth accuracy and resolution for defining specific shapes step down. GPR, ground-penetrating radar, is another tool, often better for shallower subsurface detail than SAR.
So we have these cool new tools, but interpretation is still key, right?
Absolutely crucial. Technology gives us data, sometimes amazing data, but turning that data into reliable knowledge requires rigorous scientific method, careful analysis, peer review, the whole process. You can't just jump from a radar blip to an 80-meter cube underground without extraordinary proof.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we started with this really wild claim. Huge underground city, SAR detection.
Super intriguing stuff.
But digging in, we found significant skepticism from the scientific community, issues with peer review, doubts about what SAR can reliably show at those depths in that environment.
Yeah, the interpretation seems like a major leap.
And contrasting that, we have this really solid evidence-based understanding of the pyramids as incredible human constructions.
Yeah.
Amazing engineering, logistics, organization.
The testament to their skills, definitely.
And while mysteries remain, and alternative theories like aliens or Atlantis keep popping up,
They do keep things interesting.
they generally lack that solid archaeological foundation.
That's a fair summary. Evidence really matters when you're faced with these kinds of extraordinary claims.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Why? Why are we still so captivated by the mysteries of places like the pyramids?
Good question.
What is this fascination with hidden knowledge, with alternative explanations, tell us about ourselves, about how we look at history?
It's deep, isn't it? Maybe it reflects a desire for something more, a hidden layer to reality, or maybe just the thrill of a puzzle that isn't quite solved.
Definitely something to think about. We really encourage you to dig deeper yourself. Look into the actual archaeology of Egyptian engineering, follow the scientific debates, check out the tech being used now.
Form your own informed opinions. Always question, always look
Now,
at the evidence.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.